So, Lyndsay, the one of the highlights for me of last year at Workwise was launching our animation that is available on our website and on our YouTube channel. And I think for me, it just explains really clearly what emotional health is and why it's important. Plus, I love the blobby people on the animation.
Yes,
They're brilliant, aren't they? What's your
they
favourite
are.
thing about it?
I think for me is it's really easy to understand. It's really accessible because of the blobby people potentially. But I also find it really empowering. It tells us that emotional health is for everyone, and everybody can learn the skills to manage their own emotions. So I find that really hopeful.
Yeah, hopeful's a really good word because in my head, when I go out and I talk to people about emotional health, that's what comes up all the time, that it's a really hopeful thing. And I remember back when I was a school governor 23, 4 years ago, and I did the nurturing program training from the Centre for Emotional Health for the first time. And I walked out and I said, that's brilliant. It's the most transformational thing I've done. Everyone should be doing it. And unbeknownst to me, the organization was encountering that all the time. And so that's how we came up with our model for emotional health uh, as an important foundation for life, for good mental health, and that it's applicable to everyone in every setting. And now I know that you, in your past, have worked in a particular setting, haven't you, in prisons?
I have, yes. For the last 12 years, I was working in an open women's prison. And we realised really early on that the nurturing programme, which we facilitated on a regular basis with the women in the prison, included concepts that were just absolutely universal. They were life skills that everybody would find helpful. They were things like forming healthy relationships, setting boundaries and how to hold them, problem solving and negotiating, but also the importance of nurturing yourself and not feeling guilty for putting yourself first. And so we opened it up to everybody. So whether you had children or not, you were able to come on the programme. And we had some really positive feedback. People found it incredibly useful.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. I mean, I've used it as a parent, and when I did the nurturing program, my two children who are now well into their mid to late twenties were much younger, and I used it as a parent. I used it in my relationships at work. I after I'd done it, I trained as a primary school teacher, and I used it in the classroom.
Mm.
It really is a universal tool, isn't it?
It really is. And I think about it on a daily basis as well, whether you're at work, whether I'm with my own children, I've got two young children. Every area of my life, I think, actually, hang on a second, I'm using my personal power, or actually, I need to set a boundary here. So I find it a really useful framework just for going forward. But the emotional health side of it just helps me to navigate the ups and downs of everyday life, which, are part and parcel of what everybody is going through. But it makes me feel more in touch with how I feel and how I respond to certain situations.
Yeah, and that is almost the challenge to raising awareness of emotional health because it's such a part of everyday life. It's how you manage the good days and the bad days and the days which are nondescript. You're
Yes.
using those tools of self-awareness and relationship skills without necessarily knowing them, but discovering that you can enhance them by being aware of them and thinking about them
Mm.
and working on them and acknowledging your feelings and dealing with them is such a powerful transformative thing to experience, isn't it?
I think it is. And I think everybody tends to have a go to as to how they deal with things. For myself, I find that I tend to internalize things quite a lot. And I do feel that actually, over time, I've realized that that actually, for me, is quite a healthy response to allow me to reflect and reassess how I feel. But then I need a process. I need something beyond that. And I need to be able to share that with people. And often that tends to be, say, my husband or people that I trust in my life. But it does tend to be that I seek out that human connection. And that's how I deal with things in an emotionally healthy way.
Yeah, yeah, and it's that permission to have those feelings and to lean into them and say, this feeling's okay. I'm feeling
Yeah.
this, and then thinking about how you can deal with that feeling in a healthy way, be it talking to someone or be it just actually reflecting on it, or recognizing that you might need to seek some help sometimes.
Definitely, yeah. There's something about that seeking, that needing, and that interaction with other people. And also, I always think emotional health is really interesting because it's not just about ourselves, it's also about other people. So if we're emotionally healthy, that has an impact on other people. I'm thinking in my own life, for instance, with my family, that can have an impact on my children. So if I am, for instance, if I'm quite calm, if I'm in quite a good place at that time, then I'm sharing my calm with my children. And then at times when I feel the need to manage more difficult emotions, then my children are watching me. They're looking on to see how I'm dealing with that, and they're learning from that going forward.
Yeah, that is those two things, isn't it? It's that ripple effect, the pebble in the pond, and then your how you are impacts the people around you and the relationships around you, but also, especially where children are concerned, that modeling of this is how you handle being anxious. This is how you handle feeling cross. This is how you handle feeling happy. Even
Yeah,
for
yeah,
children,
absolutely.
often they can't regulate. They don't know how to do that themselves, so they look to us to model it, and that's why it's so important that we're doing it the healthiest way possible.
And it's the same in the workplace as well. um, we've all, I'm assuming, worked with people who come in and they're not sharing their calm, they're sharing their angst, their anxiety, everything that's happening and is bubbling up to the surface. And the impact that that can have on a room is immense. As you say, it's like the ripple effect. And being able to manage those emotions can lead to a much healthier, much more comfortable culture at work as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's that I can't you're our expert trainer, so you'll be able to tell me which week this is in. But there's that cycle of feelings and behavior that, how I'm feeling will
Mm,
dictate how I then behave, which will then dictate how you respond to me and how you're feeling, and you create this cycle. And if that's a negative cycle, then you have this kind of doom spiral of
yeah.
negative behavior and negative feelings. Where actually, if you can turn it on its head, and actually create a positive one, then
Mm,
then I'm able to help someone else feel good, who is then able to make someone else feel good, and you create that sense of well-being, I guess. And it's not, emotional health isn't about being happy all the time, but it's
mm.
about being able to navigate whatever that working day will throw at you, because of those relationships.
Definitely. And the professionals that we work with, so as a trainer, I meet with people on a regular basis from all walks of life, but in their professional capacity, an awful lot of the time they have a lot of stress put onto them as part of their everyday work. They're working with families that have, really big needs. And because of that, their stress bucket is filling up, and they need to negotiate that in how they're going to respond at work and almost limit the damage of that, and know how they're going to effectively manage their emotions whilst still remaining empathic and still remaining able to do their job with feeling. And that's a really tricky balance to have.
Yeah, yeah, no, it is a tricky balance, isn't it? Um, Lyndsay, we could talk about emotional health forever, couldn't we? We should probably we should probably we should probably stop. But it's been great chatting to you, and just reflecting on both emotional health, but also that amazing animation, which I use all the time because it explains emotional health far better than I could ever do.
Definitely, it's really, really useful to watch that, and we use that in our training as well to just put it in a nutshell.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Awesome, Lyndsay. Great chatting to you. Have a good day.
Thank you, you too. Bye.
Chat soon. Bye.
Bye.